So a lot of my videos can be very technical, and somebody pointed this out to me not too long ago and said, Kurt, I don't understand anything about cars. Well, that's true. Some of us don't. Building cars, you need to have some sort of information. And a lot of information you can get off the internet. Like, well, what is a coilover? And what is lowering a vehicle? Should you remain stock? So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over and we're going to talk about the two different ideas when it comes to modifying the ride height of your vehicle. And that's exactly what we're talking about. When you're talking about putting a lowering coil in, you're talking about replacing the stock spring with something shorter. Not short enough where the shock bottoms out, because they do have a specific length of operating, and if you are putting in a spring so much different, like 2 or more inches lower than the stock spring height, you're definitely going to have to consider going with a different shock, because your travel is completely different. So what is a coilover? Well, basically a coilover is the same as this. We have our coil on strut combination with a top hat. The only difference is they have been tuned for performance. What does that mean? Well, as you can see here, if we were running a stock spring or a lowering spring like this one, we would have a set height. That height never changes. So what is the advantage of a coilover? To adjust your ride height, to adjust how soft your rebound is, so that you can still have a firm but responsive ride, or you can ride like a train and knock all of your fillings out. But all of that is up to you by adjusting the top of your coilover, which this is not, to have a softer rebound or stiffer rebound. That all depends on one thing: your driving style, the driving style that you're going to get, and what you're using the vehicle for. If you're into drifting, it's probably going to be a soft setup. Now, of course, we wouldn't be talking about drifting a 4,700 pound SUV. Not yet. What we want to look into is which one should you go with? Or should you just stay stock? It all comes up to ride preference. Each coil has a different height to change this factory one out, if we're just talking about coils. The other advantage, why you might choose a lowering coil over a coilover, is cost. Considerably less money if you're running something like this. If you're into tracking your vehicle, these may not be adequate for what you're trying to do. And why is that? Well, because you have more adjustability with these shocks. You can change your ride height. You can lift the vehicle up. You can lower the vehicle down. You can set a vehicle up to have all the weight distributed better than factory. But you will sacrifice comfort for stiffness. How is that going to affect you? The only way to understand that is if we actually hopped in the rail car here and went for a ride. So you can actually find out what kind of ride you would be expecting if you were to put coilovers in your 4,700 pound SUV. So why would you care about your ride quality in your vehicle when you're looking to get into the track and you're looking to track this thing all the time and still drive it on the daily? Well, we're in the Explorer with the coilovers, and as you can tell, there's quite a bit of movement. It's not a very soft ride. It is quite rigid, if I can say so. Oh dear. I'm having a hard time keeping the camera still while driving because it's going on every bump, and it's like riding on rails. Realistically, it is stiff. So for someone that's going to be using this for daily driving, taking their kids to school, all that sort of fun stuff, you might want to consider something with a little less stiffness. The nice thing is, if you get this thing too low, you throw some people in the back, is it going to rub? Well, you can technically lift the vehicle to make sure that doesn't happen, which you definitely cannot do with your lowering coils. Once it's set, and that's it. And if you get rubbing issues, you have to look at a full different coil. And then you have to try to sell it used, so you're gonna lose money. So there's something to consider. So now that we've talked about the ride, we're going to go ahead and get out of the vehicle and lift the vehicle up and start pulling off the coilovers to put on the stock suspension. Now, please let me know in the comments what you guys think about what we're doing here today. Also, I want to first show you how to properly remove the rear springs and put springs back in, because I didn't do a very good job last time, and I'm going to own that one. And thank you guys for letting me know that I could do better. So as you can see here, we do have the subframe drop down, and the reason we're doing that is so we can remove the coil spring very easily. And with that coil spring out, yes, it's a shorter spring, as this is from the coilover setup here, as you can see here. So we're gonna go and put that back in, and the reason we dropped the subframe down is so we would have easier access to get this spring in. I can undo this one a little bit more, I think. Now, let's put this back into place. Of course, as you can see, I'm using a block of wood. Probably not ideal for this situation. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to just make sure this is in place, and we're going to throw the bolt back in. Just in case you were thinking about doing subframe bushings, this would be a good time to do it once your shocks are up. But hey, if you've already gotten this far and you already have your springs that you're putting in this thing, shoot, eh? What you gonna do? So what we're gonna do is we're going to finish this up by running the impact gun, and I'm going to throw in exactly what you need to undo to get it to this point. So this just basically pops in, and no tools required to compress that spring as we love it. I'm just going to come back to you when this is all said and done, and we can go ahead and swap our shock over from the coil setup to the regular shock to put back in this vehicle. Normally, if you're going to take the top piece off this here, it's a pretty simple process. Unfortunately, we have to replace this because the actual coilover that was on this side, something happened, and oh, I know what happened. Oh, I know what happened. It was missing a spacer. That hurts. Okay, so there was a spacer on this side, there wasn't one on the other side. So when you guys are putting this stuff together, make sure you're doing it right, because now, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to buy, well, the customer's gonna have to buy a new one. I'll put it in, but I mean, when you're dealing with aftermarket performance parts, be careful, everyone. If it doesn't seem right, take it apart, take a break, go have a coffee, go eat something, maybe sleep, because now this is completely shot, and we have to replace it, and I don't know if Ford has it. So anyways, of course, looking again, so this would sit about here inside, so you can see that the coilover, it's actually just a coil. It is adjustable. However, it's not technically a coilover because the spring sits inside. Well, let's not get technical. I'm gonna finish buttoning this up. I don't need to show you guys, you know what I'm doing. I'm gonna throw the shock back down in there, and then we'll move on to the front. here is the coilover. Not only is this body adjustable, but you can adjust the preload on here, and then on the top you can adjust your damper settings so that you can effectively dial in how you want your ride. Now obviously you can see there's a little bit of a difference between the coilover setup that we're taking out and the factory unit we're going to put back in. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is lower the car back down, and we're going to put this back in. Now when you put the shock in, you want to make sure to line up this line with this side of the vehicle, and we'll show you that right now. Like, Kurt, this is overkill. Like, we've already watched a really good video by Houston Speed Freaks, but hey, you know what? He really did a good job. So we have this line is going to point towards me as I slide it up into the car. And of course you want to go, oh, don't drop that. Oh, thank you, Ford. You know what? I don't care what anybody says about Ford engineers. They're the best. Well, now that we have our suspension back together, we've got the stock shocks in there, we've got the stock ride height, we can throw the wheels back on, take it for an alignment, and let's go for a drive and see the difference between an absolute canned Explorer and your stock ride height. So we're back down our same road here. Now unfortunately, I didn't do any of this testing with the other Explorer, so we're just going to drive our lowered Explorer down the same road, and you can tell immediately that it is a night and day difference between the lowering coils and the coilovers. So if we're riding stock here, it would be, I just drove by a cop. If we were on stock suspension, it would be so much quieter and softer than just what we're on right now. But that shows you the difference between coilovers and lowering coils in a Ford Explorer ST. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Southdown Garage. It's kind of a weird episode of Southdown Garage, but hey, it's been a long time since I've posted anything. I'm really sorry for that. I will explain that later. But I am back, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll see you on another episode of Southdown Garage. Bye for now.